Secretary Ringgold, can you take roll, please?
President Rush.
Here.
Vice President McFarland.
Here.
Secretary Ringgold is here. Treasurer Lauterbach.
Here.
Member Blasey.
Here.
Member Craig.
Here.
Member Horowitz.
Present.
Quorum.
Okay. Item 2 on the agenda is request to address the board. I did not have anybody sign up ahead of time. Would anybody care to address the board?
Good afternoon, Bill Demina, Homer Township. One of the things I did not see in the Omni Tech report was a real emphasis on the opposition that the community had to this free pre-K and the impact it had on facilities that would have to be modified. Your 3881 had quite a bit of incurred costs to modify classrooms, certify for pre-K, the safety concerns, et cetera. And I just wanted to say, when we go to the strategic planning, that that was one of the big things that was fueling the opposition. So I hope that your strategic plan really takes into account that even though the governor was pushing for free pre-K in her budget, that that's going to be one of the major things that'll fuel opposition to any future bond that you put forth. And I hope that you take that into consideration, because we all want something that is going to pass. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay, item 3.1 for action, expulsion of student A. Kara?
A board subcommittee that included members Scott McFarland, John Lauterbach, and Ann Horowitz met on February 24th, 2026 to consider expulsion for student A. Student A was originally suspended for violations of Board Policy 5206. It is recommended that student A be expelled from Midland Public Schools with the opportunity to petition for reinstatement at 150 days after the date of expulsion. A copy of the full resolution is attached to the board agenda.
Thank you, Kara. Is there a motion for item 3.1?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Horowitz, support by McFarland. Kara, can you talk just a little bit to the services that we provide students that are expelled from the classroom?
So we will support them through whether they have an IEP, that will come into play, and we would support them with that if they have one. If a student is attending JCC, then those supports also would be supported through there, along with counseling services. We always try to, or we work with partnering with community mental health, and then whatever services, outside services they might already have. So just making sure we wrap around and that those educational services are still provided.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
Phil, I'll just chime in and say this is just one of those moments that's unfortunate for us as a school district, and to assure the board that we don't take this lightly. I appreciate Kara's comments about how we do work to provide support in hopes to reintegrate students who have been expelled back into our school community when they're ready, and we have assurance that they're ready. But this is something we take very seriously.
Mm-hmm. Item 3.1 does require a roll call vote. Secretary Ringgold, can you?
President Roush.
Yes.
Vice President McFarland.
Yes.
Secretary Ringgold is a yes. Treasurer Lauterbach.
Yes.
Member Blasey.
Yes.
Member Craig.
Yes.
Member Horowitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Item 4 is our strategic planning workshop, so I will turn the floor over to our Omni Tech team.
Thank you. We are happy to be here for the second board workshop. Many of you participated in the first one, and all the inputs and information that you looked at and all the feedback that you had have been incorporated in the work that we've done between then and now. So we're happy to get to this kind of exciting milestone in the process. So we'll walk through and tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. We'll touch a little bit on the planning process and timeline, just so you know. where we're at in the process and what steps are coming up next and what you can be prepared for as board members. And then we will go through the drafts, I would say the closer to final drafts of the work that we've been doing, and beginning with the profile of a successful MPS graduate, and then looking at those overarching guiding statements that govern the strategic plan, the mission, the vision, the values, and then we'll go through the strategic framework, looking at the high-level priorities or goals, whatever we decide that we want to call them as we start the cascading of that strategic plan. And this is kind of, like I mentioned, a very strategic point in the process, because your input today will provide you the opportunity to vote on that high-level plan. And that will give the leadership team the go-ahead to start working on the detailed goals, actions, plan of work that will constitute the work that will be done to implement that strategic plan. So we want this part done well, and we welcome any and all of your feedback. I know that the planning team has met as well, so half of you have seen quite a bit of this and have had a lot of discussion. And we look forward to all of you having an opportunity to look at that. Your next big touch point as a board is on March 16th, and that's when you will vote on this high-level plan. And I just want to take a minute to go backwards a little bit so you understand how we got here. Since the last meeting that we all had together, the leadership team, the planning team, and a number of smaller groups, subcommittees have joined together to take all the feedback that you provided at that last board meeting and that workshop and refined all of the information. So all of the pieces that we're going to talk about today have been redrafted, have been refined. We've had a lot of conversation about them. At the same time, we at Omni Tech have gone back and looked at the body of data collected to make sure that all the things that have been refined are in line with the data and the feedback that we received as well. So this, again, represents the very best work to date, and it has been blessed by the planning team. They've all agreed that what you received as drafts constitutes the feedback and the discussions that we've all had. So I'm going to start with the profile of an MPS graduate. And just a couple of things that I want to bring up about that. We collected hundreds of data points around this question. I think it was probably one of the most fun parts of the process for us as consultants, because it was great to hear what community members had to say about what they would like to see in that profile of that graduate. But more importantly, we started with the most important group first, and that was students. And we ended with the most important group, and that was students. Penny brought the latest draft to the student group last week, prior to you seeing this draft that's up here. And they made some tweaks based on the students. And a lot of this is from some of the feedback that you all had in the workshop as well, making sure that this is something that our students are going to look at and see themselves in. And so I think the end result of what you see is pretty exciting. And I looked at all the evolutions. We probably had about 25 different drafts of this, maybe more. And we went back and looked at the data one more time. Once we collected all the different comments and feedback on this, we sorted it by common themes. And we looked at all the themes that were common to everybody, and that was our beginning point. And when we went and reviewed that again in the last week, this represented that data really well. And then that final blessing from the students, I think, made me feel pretty positive that this is a good draft. So I don't know how many of you have looked at this very closely, but thanks to Katie Geyer, you've got a very pretty graphic of this. There's actually 2 graphics to choose from. We're not going to get too hung up on the way things look today, but I did want you to see that we're evolving and looking at different ways of presenting this. But I will just put this one up because it's first on the screen and talk about a little bit the 4 themes that have kind of emerged from here. And you see them on the left up there, the profile of a graduate. The first theme is around being future ready. And it has to do with career and life skills, being a critical thinker, being an effective communicator, and having a growth mindset. I won't read through the description on the right, but you can see there's a more detailed description of what those 4 bullet points entail. And that absolutely was a summation of all the data and feedback that was collected. The second is being locally and globally connected. And we had a lot of comments around wanting to make sure that our graduates, excuse me, I've lost my voice this week again, and making sure that we have folks that want to be engaged in their communities and be good citizens, and that they're open-minded and they're good collaborators, and they help build relationships. So I love the adjectives on this one. Again, you can see the longer description to the right. There is a lot of conversation about resiliency and some of the things that might fall under that, like being adaptable and being creative, being empathetic, being reflective, being able to bounce back if you've tried something and it didn't work, and continuing to move forward. And so that was a common theme that came out. Again, you've got a more detailed paragraph to the right. And then finally, the fourth was being responsible. And that has to do with being accountable and doing what you say you're going to do. It could be showing up to work on time, being independent, being motivated and driven, and being reflective. So those are the 4 profile themes that kind of have emerged after all these reiterations. And I think it looks really great. I think it's very representative of what we've collected. So I would just pause there for a few minutes so you can reflect on that, share any comments. If something doesn't sound true to you in any way, shape, or form, or there's a word that doesn't sound right, please let us know.
Under resilient, you have reflective on both pages. Under responsible, you have reflective again on the front page and not on the second page.
Oh, where would you like to have it?
It's
Oh,
just,
just over there too. Do you, but do you want
is it
reflective
supposed to
on,
be there?
do you
or
want
is it not
reflective
supposed
on
to be in both
both?
spots? On one. So I would remove reflective from responsible.
Yep.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
we'll take care of that. Good catch.
I'll just say 2 things. One, sitting on the team that helped, I even struggle to use the word help because we didn't have to do much. And one of the things I was reflecting on in this process was just how engaged our community and students and staff really were in the process. And, I think I speak for Jen and Ann that as board members, we really got to take a step back and watch the process play out, and it was really encouraging to see how much our community's voice was heard throughout this process and represented in what's outlined here. And then the other thing, as a graduate, what I love about this is it doesn't matter where a student chooses their career or vocational path to go. Whether they go into the military, skilled trades, want to go to college, what have you, directly into the workforce, they see themselves represented in here. And those are the 2 things that I was thinking about as we reflect on these.
Can I ask about the decision to make this the profile of a graduate rather than a student? I'm just thinking about, obviously if you go through the whole, from K up to graduation, you will eventually be a graduate. But I'm thinking that even when you're in kindergarten or first grade, like there are still ways that you can, I guess, work on these skills or have opportunities to explore some of these options even before you're a graduate. So I'm just curious about any discussion that happened about choosing the word graduate rather than a student.
I can take that one, Mecky. So the intention is that exactly what you said, that this will be baked in throughout a student's experience from preschool all the way through 12th grade or beyond, if they remain with us beyond in a program, and that we will find and build opportunities for students to cultivate these skills and attributes. The intentional use of graduate is that it's sort of this terminal point, and when you launch out into the world beyond Dow High or Midland High, that we have assured that you've had opportunities to gain these. So it's similar to how we think about academic achievement, that when you reach that terminal SAT, M-STEP assessment in the 11th grade, that you have reached proficiency. So we've sort of paired it with that. It's not meant to be exclusive to just graduates.
I think the other thing that, can I add to
Please.
that? So actually part of, as I was looking at this, and it's actually pulled up on my computer right now, are the IB learner profile traits, and how, like from a strategic standpoint, this one document kind of takes this lifespan of being a student and puts it in a public-facing form. I think to kind of piggyback off what Phil was saying, one of the things that both our students, when Penny had a chance to talk to the superintendent student advisory team, brought forward, as well as community members participating in this strategic process and the surveys, like this is a bridge document, right? For that piece of, here's what has been, we've talked about this from a community standpoint too, like this is something that we're all committed to being a part of for someone who graduates from Midland Public Schools. It's a community input, it's an employer ask, it's a student work, teachers, like that everyone in some way, shape, or form is part of what this means to create this profile of someone who has been part of Midland Public Schools. So like that was really important to me too. Last week I got to sit down on some PYP stuff, and I was like for the IB program, and it was like, oh yeah, like these words are there. Like all this whole process is not just arbitrary. It's something that we've really been working on for decades ultimately, and this is just a culmination point through this strategic process where we'll have a forward-facing document that both employers from the community and our graduates, our students, can be like, all right, this is where we meet up and move forward from this point. So,
Any other comments?
Katie and I have talked about a lead-in to this that we'll have, for example, on the website that describes a little bit of what you're saying, that this is a community endeavor. And actually, if you look at the second graphic representation of this, that was part of her thought with that, is it spoke a little more to the greater Midland connection, because it is branded a little more as Midland overall.
All right, any other questions or comments? And there is a more, like Penny just said, a more Midland branded color scheme of this as well. So as we move forward, we'll select a final one, and you'll see that in your next packet. All right, we're going to move on to kind of the governing statements of the strategic plan, which are the mission, the vision, the values, and the tagline. I would say that the tagline you already had, and we really looked hard at how to make sure that we could continue to use that tagline and make sure that it's integrated and makes sense with the rest of the statements that are here. We've got the mission statement, and if I look at and just point out to you what has changed since the last time you saw it, there were a couple of comments at the workshop that you had when we start with the mission statement. There were a couple comments last time about the word innovative, and are we able to be innovative as a school district? And then a little bit of discussion around learning community. And if I can paraphrase for the planning team and some of the conversations we had, please feel free to jump in as well. We talked a lot about keeping it exactly the same because it's important to have the word community in there. And community is a little bit broader, but we do have students that aren't physically here, but they're part of our learning community. So there were a couple of cases like that where we thought it was very important to have that word in there. And we do partner quite a lot with entities in the community to advance learning as well. So we chose as a team to keep learning community in there. And we also kind of opened up our discussion a little bit more. I know some of you have had some sidebar discussions around the word innovative. So if you want to jump in on that, feel free as well. But we do have the ability to be innovative. So we left the mission statement as is. Penny, anybody else want to make any other comments about the mission statement? Again, this is a purpose statement. So no changes from the last one, so it's pretty much the same. Our vision, again, was developed by looking at the full body of data that we collected around aspirations and with the planning team work to start crafting a vision statement. So it reads, our graduates are prepared with the essential knowledge, skills, and character to achieve personal success and positively impact their communities. We made a few slight changes, but they were more grammatical to make it sound a little bit better. Instead of having 3 different adjectives, we just have the word essential. And so it's not huge changes from the last time, but it just sounds a little bit better and reads a little bit cleaner. So I would open up to see if there are any comments, questions around the vision statement. All right. We talked a little bit about values already, but we started, I think we had 8 to start with, and then we brought it down to 6. And we started looking at the 4 value statements against all the other body of work, including the profile, as well as the mission, the vision, and the tagline. So we didn't repeat too much. And the final drafts are what you see up here. Excellence, really wanting to tie that back into the tagline of inspiring excellence, not only because you've developed so many materials with the theme of excellence, but we all felt it was very important to have a vision and values that promoted excellence. And then belonging, I think we tweaked a little bit on there, but not much. Trust is the same, and we thought it was very important to have collaboration in there because that essentially is a strategy built into the plan as well. And there were a few minor words in the descriptors, like collective impact was added, some things to strengthen the statements, but not huge differences since the last time you saw them. So I'll just pause there. When you look at the full draft of mission, vision, and value statements, any comments, thoughts, ideas?
So looking at the word trust, I've been thinking about this one for a while because trust is something that you can earn from someone or you can be given. I'm curious about how we do trust it, and if the word trust represents what we're expecting to receive or hoping to receive, or I guess there's some words in the description that I think are more reflective of what we might do as if this is the value, like integrity, transparency. And so I'm curious about the thought on trust and just how those discussions went.
Yeah, I think you're right. Trust is something that you earn through the actions that you do. So it's fair feedback. I think the description is correct in the actions that we take as a district or aspire to take. What we hope to earn is and continue to earn, and we have to earn it every day, is the trust of our community members that we are serving the students in those ways listed out in the description. It's good feedback. I don't know what other board members think about the word that we use as the value.
I didn't mean to stump anyone with it. I was just thinking about how we use this document and, you know, if we value trust, I don't know, it just felt like that, yes, that is what we want to earn, and I can appreciate that, but acting out the value of trust, it seems like we're acting out different values with the goal of earning trust. And so and it's also, it felt a little like it's not in our control whether we get the trust or not. We can take the steps to have integrity, to be transparent, but the trust is something that we don't control and will just be on the community to choose to give or not. And so it was, yeah, just struggled with that a bit.
Do you feel there's a word in that description that is a better replacement? Or does another word come to mind for you or anyone on the board? Sorry, Lena, I'm stepping on your toes. Go ahead,
No,
Leanne.
you're wonderful.
I think it emerged because as you're thinking, it was part of our previous statement, lead with respect, trust, and courage, and that resonated with our, I think with our staff for sure. And it presented itself in the data set too, that it was
certainly
something that
did.
we needed to work on was becoming an organization that can be trusted. I think there was some data to support that we are, and then some that was an area that we needed to work on. So I like the idea that it's represented somewhere in here because that honors the feedback we received. But maybe that word itself isn't the right word.
The word trust came up a lot as a theme. And when I think of values, when we teach values seminars will always say, what are the things that you value the most? And then describe to me how you would live your life or what I would see. Like if I came in and said, if you really value trust or trust with constituents or the community or everybody that you serve, then what should I see from you as behaviors, right? And so I think you did a really good job of describing the behaviors because those are the themes that came up in the feedback as well. So I think that matches. I have worked with a lot of other organizations that have trust as a value, and it works, but I totally understand what you're saying in that it just doesn't resonate to you as something that you could value. It's more what you earn. And I think at this point, it's probably a little bit in semantics, but we're happy to go back and work with the team to come up with another word or to pull. I think what I would probably do is try to pull one of the theme words in the description and maybe indicate that trust. I don't want to lose the word trust because it did come up so often. So I think maybe either y'all can decide that you can live with it the way it is, or if we want to go back to the drawing board, we try to find a different word for that and put trust into the outcome of the behaviors listed below. Happy to do either.
And I think thanks for buying me some time
Yeah.
to think through a little bit. But I think because I do appreciate that we do have a lot of community members who trust us as an organization, and we do have some community members who are struggling with trust. And so I think to me, if we're just sharing our values, excellence, belonging, trust, collaboration, not everybody is going to get the detail under it. And it feels a bit like we just got some feedback, and again, it doesn't reflect all of it, that this is an area you need to work on. And now you're just telling us that, now you're just, trust is just in there now. And I think that it could be misinterpreted that now we have trust in our
That
value
it's a
statement.
given,
So now,
maybe?
Yeah, now you can trust us, and I'm wondering if there's a word about the action that describes the actions that we're going to take or the action that we take when it comes to trust that will resonate better.
So I wonder if we
lead with integrity, is integrity what we're ultimately after? Because integrity often leads to trust, or integrity is a key component of trust. If you're viewed as an individual or a district or a business that has integrity, are people more willing to trust you? I wonder if we kind of reverse, and I'm not saying just shove the word trust in where integrity is, but if we kind of reverse this so that we say we want our goal, and we believe, our goal is to have integrity. We believe that we have integrity, and this will lead to trust, but it occurs through communication with transparency, accountability, et cetera.
Yeah, I think something like that, where integrity as this is what we're committing to, integrity, and then in the explanation, this is our goal, having trust as the goal. And whether integrity is that best word, you could, I'm not saying because I have a problem with it, maybe there's another better word that we'll think of later, but I think for the folks who do feel like this is something where they want to see more in, or where they haven't felt like where they haven't felt that that's been realized in their situation, just seeing it as like, oh, you value trust. Well, they might not feel it yet. And so what does that mean? So I think even with the best of intentions, it could be off-putting to some.
All right, why don't we plan on going back to the drawing board a little bit on that one, and maybe working the word integrity into the title and figuring out how to put trust in the descriptor a little bit more as an outcome? Would that be okay for everyone?
Or just that, or just come back with this version and the suggested change, just so we can see both
So you
of
can
them.
see and then decide. Okay, we'll do that.
So just throwing out, as this conversation has been having, like, ultimately we want to be reliable, right? Like, that's, I think, the thing is we want, when, I keep thinking about like communications that we have and difficult conversations that we have. And when we come through, in a situation and we say that this is the way it has to be or whatever, we want that to be reliable in a way so that people can trust us, right? So like, and the lead with respect, trust, and courage, right? Like all three of those words go to being a reliable institution that you can count on one way or another. So just kind of throwing that word out there, because I don't necessarily want to lose the meaning, but as we're having this conversation, the word trust just gets really tricky, right? Regardless. So maybe it's being reliable or reliability is our value, and that is how we lead with integrity and communicate with transparency will end up helping to build trust. But I don't think that integrity is necessarily the replacement for trust. Like, I don't think those two go back and like that you could just swap them. So
I struggle with reliability because I think you can be
reliably
on time, but not be trustworthy.
yeah.
We'll put some work into looking at different words that might suffice and come up with a couple of other comments that we can feed back to you prior to your vote so that we've got some good copy for you to respond to.
I also don't think it's just giving us words. I think it's kind of re-looking at how we've framed just this little, well, big, but little piece of the whole thing. Because we're not just going to cut and paste different words.
No, we are not. Yeah. So we will rewrite that third one and have one or two options for you to choose from, which we will get to you prior to your March vote, so we can kind of see if we're getting a little bit closer. Is that fair? Okay, sounds great. And then collaboration is the last one, and I would welcome any other comments you'd have on that. All right, so we'll rework that, and we'll have information back for you on that one. Okay, I know you've all had a chance to see this, but this is the emerging framework. Please note that the graphic may change. This is just the graphic we've used to make it look a little bit better so you can see what the illustration would be. The mission, vision, and values would be on the left. That we've already been through those. And what you're seeing are the emerging priorities and some of the objectives, high-level objectives that come under each of those. I think when we started, we had 6, and we were down to 5, and now we have, after much conversation, merged into 4 key priority areas. I'm going to start with each one, and I want you to have an opportunity to look at the objectives that are under each. So we'll start with academic excellence and student experience. I won't read that verbatim since they're right in front of you, but you have instructional excellence, technology integration, future-focused programming, and whole child well-being. How we got to this list is when we had our workshop, we had a similar document up in front of you, and you talked about the things that were absolutely a priority from the board standpoint. We made sure that those were embedded in this, but we also had the leadership team go through and the planning team look at it too to say, you know, what else do we need to have in here that was reflected in the data we collected and the work that we do.
Under the technology integration, it says responsibly integrate technologies. Why doesn't that just say technology and then strike the including AI tools? Because technology is always evolving, and it may be AI tools for the next couple of years, and then it's not. And then we have to go back and revisit this again. Technology just seems like it would survive
That's a very good point. We had a lot of comments on
Yeah, Scott, I
AI
asked the same
specifically, and I
question.
think that's why we kept it in here, because there were quite a few comments and feedback from stakeholders, particularly community members and students too, about really understanding. And the other thing I would point out is that this is a 3 to 5 year plan, and you're going to have to address AI in that time frame. So that's why it's in there, but I see your point as well. And as long as you can communicate in the next layer that AI was part of those discussions, I'm not sure. I mean, it's really up to all of you.
I do think it is a hot topic for us in the next 3 years. Also, one thing I appreciate about Omni Tech's process, and they kept reminding us in our planning team, is that we ought not wordsmith to the point where the community can't still see their input and influence in this. And because AI was called out as an area of need for us to understand and figure out how to integrate that, we chose to keep it. But I'm with Leanne, we could put it underneath in one of the more specific objective areas.
I think, and I asked the question about why are we including AI at least twice, I think, in strategic planning meetings. I think the pause for me is that we say technology integration. So I know that we have to address AI tools and how we use them. I think the question is, do we have to integrate them? And maybe if we're exploring them, then we understand on some level we have to integrate at some point. But yeah, Scott, I had the same question. I was like, well, AI is part of technology. Why do we have to call out AI?
It's totally up to all of you. I think it was more to make sure that it resonated with all the folks that gave very specific feedback on that.
Yeah, my perspective was there was so much feedback, and it's such a big change, I think, to not just our schools, but kind of society at large, that we wanted to call it out separately. feedback. Take us through the next one.
Sure. So what's your preference?
So personally, I think we don't have a choice but to specifically call out AI. I mean, it is too big, it's too important in our world, in all of the things that we're looking at with education, period. The fact that students are saying, I don't know what to do with this from an educational standpoint, the fact that, I mean, and we do, our staff is already integrating AI into the work that they're doing. So we've already got it. It's already integrated into, I mean, so the integration piece is not necessarily a question at this point, but if we don't say specifically that we're going to deal with AI, I think we're dropping a ball.
I'm afraid that not everybody will look at the second, third, fourth, and fifth page of your strategic plan, and if all they see is the front page, you might want it on there. But it's totally up to all of you. We okay to move on, or? Okay. Anything else in that first one around future-focused programming or whole child well-being? Or any questions under academic excellence and student experience? All right, we'll move on to the next one, which is collaborative culture. Again, this was a big theme in the feedback. And there are 3 priorities underneath there: transparent communication, strong partnerships, and culture of belonging.
I'll just share for this one, you might remember we had sort of a separate community collaboration one. And as we tried to figure out where to fit things, because it is both an external and an internal piece, that we felt this encapsulated both of those. And so just know that collaborative culture is for our entire school community. And this really gets to that community partnership piece that we heard with families and community agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Good to move on? All right, the third is operational excellence, and it includes financial stewardship, continuous improvement, and team excellence. So the HR part of the plan that we had before is built into the team excellence component here. Okay, see some nods, so ready to move to the last one. And the last one is infrastructure and facilities, and that includes comprehensive facility planning and safety and security. And there were conversations about how safety is such a big priority, and we felt like it needed to be its own topic.
I'll add to that. We want to be clear that we recognize that safety and security is beyond just the physical environment with facilities and infrastructure. And there are elements of that that pair back to the student experience and the social, emotional, and mental health realm. So we may see some focus up in that first area as well as under the physical structure area regarding school safety.
Penny, one question for maybe you and your team. When you read user experience, you touched on this a little bit, but does that encompass really the programmatic aspect of how we use facilities and make sure that they're purpose-built for our students? User is just not a word that we use very often. We either use students or...
So we were framing this as certainly being student-centered, but we also employ a lot of folks and want to ensure that the facility meets their needs to carry out their job if we're coming back to this idea of being a community partner and that schools are going to be a community hub, are there elements of that that we need to consider for community use as well? So we use that as more of a general term. Willing to accept your feedback, however, if you'd like a stronger statement in there about a student focus.
No, I think it makes sense.
Okay, and as we build that out in the plan of work, we can make that more clear as well.
Any other comments? So this is exciting to have the draft of the strategic framework nearly complete. Now, if you, in the next couple of days, look at this and see anything else that resonates with you, by all means, give us a quick call, and we'll certainly think about that. But it's a milestone when we can get to the point where we've got that together. So I feel really good about that. Thank you for your feedback. Appreciate it. So I want you to understand what happens next, because what happens after you vote on this is equally as important, because we want to make sure you have a plan that you can implement. And there will be several layers cascading down from this. So, for instance, the green academic excellence and student experience has four key objectives. Each of those objectives will have SMART goals underneath those, which the leadership team will start drafting as soon as this is finally, has the final approval. And from there, you're going to have work plans, and things will be, responsibilities will be assigned. So it will be who's doing what by when. Is it year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5? How are we measuring things so we know that we're progressing? How are we tracking? All of those kinds of things. So you'll see a full implementation plan for that one-page strategy, but you will only vote on the one-page strategy. And then this will be where we turn this over to our staff to draft that.
And maybe I should have given you the slide that we
Yes,
used to
I
kick
thought
this
about
all
looking,
off
I
with
drew it a
the
little
clock.
bit. So
Yeah.
it's right back to your original comments in the
so-
slide that you used.
So just for clarity, this is where governance ends,
Correct.
and this is where operations
Begins.
begins.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
yes, so we may see this, but this is not the board's work. This is the administrative team's work. Right?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So kind of to wrap up, of course, we have to develop the SMART goals and then the plan of work for year 1, because we want to prioritize plan of work for year 1. But one thing that I want to make sure we mention to all of you is part of that work will be identifying metrics, KPIs, and some form of measurement and tracking, like a dashboard or integrated into current dashboards that you already have. We've been, as a company, playing around with a number of different technology tools that clients can use, usually things that they have available within their Microsoft suite or a simple add-on to be able to create some live dashboards that can update. And we'll certainly take a look at that. But please know that we can go back to this high-level strategic framework, and if you think there are targets or a key performance indicator for something that stands out that's big, we can do that. We can pull those out as well, excuse me, as well as have any type of targets or performance indicators for specific goals or actions. So that work will be done at the time that we create those SMART goals. And then beyond that, we have to look at a resource plan, because one of the reasons that many organizations don't fully implement their strategic plans is because they don't step back and ask the question, do we have the resources, not only financial resources, but knowledge, expertise, tools, technology, whatever those might be, to integrate and complete the plan. And then we'll be working with Katie to make sure that we've got a marketing and communication plan to tell the world what the plan is, right? And make sure everybody in the organization understands it. And there'll be some cascading down so people know how they're a part of it. And then we'll officially launch and execute. So most of this work will be done in April and May, so you're ready for a full launch before the next school year. And that's our presentation for today.
Any further questions or reflections? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's really impressive how this has come, more and more refined every day, and really appreciate how well you've distilled it into a coherent message that captures the community's input.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 5 on our agenda is facility planning update. Yeah, go for it.
So you heard at our last meeting from Phil that we have formed a facility planning steering team. That team has met twice since February 17th, and I just want to read you the purpose again because it has evolved just a little bit based on the actual team's feedback. So the team's purpose is to serve as a representative, community-based advisory body that guides the development of the district's facility plan and the future of Midland Public Schools, assisting the Board of Education in its final decision-making so that those decisions lead to meaningful, future-ready learning experiences for every student. So as I said, that team has met twice now. They've done just some team formation. We've done some mapping to check that our representation feels right across our community. And we do have parents and alumni and community members and a few staff members. And our team, executive team, has been present just kind of in the back, listening and learning how this is unfolding. There'll be 5 additional meetings between now and May. And at the next meeting, they're really going to start digging in to some planning. And so we will maintain that loop of communication with the board, ensuring that your perspective is woven in along with theirs, and get to a final facility plan. I do want you to know that Katie, probably as we speak, is adjusting the tab on the website. It used to be called Facility Assessment, and now it will be called Facility Planning, and we will put notes from the steering team on there. We'll list the names of the members. We'll share communication frequently through that link on the webpage, and as well as in our newsletters and maybe a few social media posts every now and again. Our interest, and the committee agrees, the team rather agrees, that we want to be very open about the work that's happening there.
Good.
I'll keep you all posted.
Thanks, Penny. Item 6, study session. Are there any points of clarification from any board members? If not, I'll turn it over to Penny for any announcements.
I just have one, which is stay tuned to all the things happening across the district. As you know, once spring gets here, we have all kinds of wonderful activities with music, art, our clubs, sports, and there is, again, no shortage of opportunities to see our students doing great things. And we'll see you all at the next regular board meeting.
Great. Thanks. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by Ringgold. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.